Welcome to the third video in a series of videos called the Foreign Language Smart Start, which is meant to help you get started with your first words and phrases when learning another language. In the first video, we talked about 6 pocket phrases that are relevant to everyone no matter who they are or what language that they're learning. And in the second video, we talked about habitat language, showing how to use your habitat to create sentences that are a part of your daily life. So now, in this video, I will share some techniques you can use to start actively practicing your habitat language. Here's a quick overview of the techniques that I will cover. Fruitful flashcards, interaction patterns, circling, practice combos, and mix and match. And at the very end, I will show you how to use a printable PDF table for keeping track of your practice phrases. First up is fruitful flashcards. The main way I like to practice habitat language is by using flashcards, but these are not the traditional kind of flashcards you might be thinking of. Let me show you how I make them. So remember, step 1 in our habitat language is to choose an item and write a sentence about it. So what I do is I write the single item on one side of the card and then the full sentence on the other side. But I don't use the English. I write both sides of the flashcard in the foreign language. For example, since I'm learning Spanish, on one side of the card I will write la puerta, which means the door, and then on the other side I will write the full Spanish sentence, la puerta está abierta, which means the door is open. And then after I've got a few, I'll shuffle through the flashcards, and then I'll look at the side with a single item and then try to remember how to say the full sentence before I flip it over. Now this is different than the traditional style flashcards that you might be used to. Traditional style usually only has one word on it, which is in your own language on one side, and then on the other side it's translated into the other language. For example, door, puerta. And then you flip it back and forth, repeating it over and over until you've memorized it just by rote memorization. There's no context to these flashcards. They only consist of one word. There's no interaction that's taking place. You're just repeating the word over and over, and no ideas are expressed. You're just writing individual words in consecutive order. And because of the nature of this traditional style, studying with these kind of flashcards is very inefficient, in my opinion. They don't produce the kind of language fruit or conversational fruit that you're going to want. Now, let's go back and take a look again at the flashcards that I made. You notice that there is no English. Both sides of the flashcard are in the new language. You will also notice that I'm using a whole sentence. Yes, of course, in this instance, one of the sides only has one word, but it's just acting as a hint to get me to say the entire sentence. There's also a context to the flashcards, both in the fact that it's a full sentence, plus the context of it being related to my immediate surroundings. There's an interaction that's taking place with these flashcards as well. I'm engaging with the language by a give and take answer to a hint, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next part of the video. And the last thing about these flashcards is that they allow me to actually express real ideas about my life. The door is open is often a part of my daily routine, even though it's kind of boring. So for a quick overview, more efficient flashcards have none of your own language, both sides of the card are completely in the new language, a full sentence or phrase, not just one word, a context with other words in the sentence and with your own habitat, an interaction, sort of give and take in a prompt and a response, and real ideas that you are expressing. And this, in my opinion, makes for some fruitful language learning and hopefully eventually fruitful conversation. Next up is interaction patterns. Interaction patterns allow you to practice in a give and take style with the language. They require you to basically just give an answer to something. You are first given a prompt or a cue or a hint of some sort, to which you then must give a response in return. So in short, the interaction pattern consists of two things, a prompt and a response. So taking the same phrase from our flashcard example, the door is open. Door is our prompt on side 1, and the door is open is our response on side 2. When engaging the interaction, you want to read the prompt and then try to remember the proper response before checking your answer. Dr. Paul Pimsleur, who is famous for the Pimsleur audio courses, wrote a fantastic book called How to Learn a Foreign Language. In it, he calls this sort of interaction the principle of anticipation. It has three parts. 1, pose a challenge. 2, let the students try to respond. And 3, provide the correct response. Pimsleur calls this cue, pause, response. The interaction pattern is basically using this same principle of anticipation with your habitat sentences. Your cue is the prompt, side 1, door, and your response is side 2, the full sentence, the door is open. And the pause is the moment you ponder the answer before you flip the card. So that is how the interaction pattern works. Now let's take a look at some different types of interaction patterns. There are many different types that you can use with this method, but there are 4 or 5 that I use most. Substitution pattern. This is the one that we've been using. I'm substituting different items into the same sentence pattern. The door is open, the window is open, the book is open, and on and on. Again, the item that I'm substituting is the prompt and the response is the full sentence, if you haven't got that already. You also have question and answer patterns. This is when you ask a question and then answer it. The question is the prompt and the answer is the response. Who left the door open? Jim left the door open. Transformation patterns. This is when you transform one type of sentence into a different type. For example, from present tense to past tense. The door is open to the door was open. You read the prompt in the present tense and then your job is to respond in the past tense. Combination patterns. This is when you combine 2 or more words into a single sentence, a thought or a response, such as blue/red is your prompt and your response is, I like blue, but I don't like red. And finally, translation patterns. This is the traditional flashcard style we talked about with one language that's translated into another. The door is open. La puerta está abierta. Of course, I highly recommend you not use this type of pattern unless you absolutely have to. But the main purpose of these interaction patterns is to have an interaction, a give and take, a sort of back and forth that allows your mind to make more connections with the language and to stay engaged, rather than just mindlessly repeating single words over and over again, hoping that then they will eventually stick someday. Now, each of these pattern types can be used in flashcards like we've seen, but what's cool is you can also create your own interaction pattern audio clips. So what you can do is get your smartphone and use a recording app or whatever recording device you prefer, hit record, and then say the prompt.
La puerta.
Wait for a few seconds, and then say the response.
La puerta está abierta.
And then wait a few more seconds. And then hit stop. And now you have a short audio clip flashcard. If you do this for each sentence, you can compile them and then plug them into your iPhone or iPod and put them on shuffle. And now you have your own interaction pattern style audio flashcards. And all you have to do is hit play, listen to the prompt, and then try to respond out loud before your own pre-recorded voice reveals the answer.
La puerta. La puerta está abierta. La puerta está abierta.
Next up is circling. In video 2 on Habitat Language, I follow 5 steps to find items from your habitat to form sentences. After completing steps 1 through 4 for the first item, step 5 is to repeat with the next item. However, instead of moving on to your next item right away, you can do what's called circling. And circling is when you ask several different questions that all revolve around one thing. So continuing with our ever so popular, though slightly boring phrase, the door is open, we can employ circling with questions such as, is the door open? Yes, the door is open. Is the door closed? No, the door is open. Is the door open or is it closed? The door is open. Is the door open or is the window open? The door is open. Is the window open? No, the door is open. This technique is very popular within the Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling community, or TPRS, which is also known as Total Physical Response. Next up is practice combos. A practice combo is a term that I made up that refers to changing more than one thing in your practice sentences at the same time in order to give yourself a higher practice range, or HPR, which is another term that I made up. So take a look at this example. Please don't sit on my chair. When I practice this sentence, I replace chair with the other things in my habitat, such as table, bed, desk, dresser, bench. But if I wanted to create a higher practice range for myself, I could do something like this. Please don't sit on my chair. Now I have two words that I'm changing. Along with replacing chair, I can also replace sit with words like stand, walk, step, kneel, dance, lay, and on and on. You can also use practice combos for more intermediate or advanced levels, such as this example. I invited Jessica to the cookout, but I don't think I'll invite her sister. Or you can be creative with it. A 5-ounce swallow cannot carry a 1-pound coconut. And for all of you who don't know what that reference is, sad day for you. And then with my practice combo, I can substitute all of these words, mixing and matching them in different ways, making lots of new combos for great practice. So basically, a practice combo allows you to practice multiple things at the same time. And speaking of mixing and matching, that brings us to our final technique. Mix and match. There's a popular language learning method called chunking. Essentially, chunking is when you take a bunch of phrase chunks and experiment with them like Legos. You take them apart, mix them around, and piece them together with other ones. Aaron Jones does a fantastic job of explaining this in his ebook called High Intensity Language Training. Good book, definitely recommend it. But in it, he has a couple chapters on chunking and its exponential potential, along with our mind's ability to extrapolate. He gives an example of several phrase chunks which he calls formulaic blocks. I don't know, and I can't remember, what she wants, how to do it, where they went. Then he shows that with only these 5 formulaic blocks, you now have the ability to say, I don't know what she wants, I don't know how to do it, I don't know where they went, and I can't remember what she wants, and I can't remember how to do it, and I can't remember where they went. I don't know how to do it, and I can't remember what she wants. I don't know how to do it, and I can't remember where they went. I don't know where they went, and I can't remember how to do it. I don't know where they went, and I can't remember what she wants. I don't know what she wants, and I can't remember where they went. I don't know what she wants, and I can't remember how to do it. Whew! That's 12 sentences you can make with only 5 phrase chunks. And he points out that if you learn just one more chunk, I said, you immediately have 12 new sentences. So this is something that I can apply to my habitat language sentences. Once I have a few sentences under my belt, I can experiment with them by mixing and matching them together. This is a brown door, plus the door is open, equals the brown door is open. This is a blue bed, plus please don't sit on the bed, equals please don't sit on the blue bed. But that's not all. Now, we've gained a lot of ground by just mixing and matching preset chunks, but what if we used our mind's ability to extrapolate and create entirely new phrase chunks? What does it mean to extrapolate? Well, according to Jones, our minds instinctively try out patterns that might make sense. To illustrate this, he provides this example here. I can't remember how to do it, and I don't know what she wants. The phrase chunk, and I don't know, is not actually one of the preset chunks we used above. Instead, we had used and with I can't remember. But our minds can extrapolate the logical pattern and instinctively try it to piece it together in different ways, such as placing and before I don't know. With a little more extrapolation, we could come up with even more sentences. I can't know what she wants, I don't remember where they went, or I know what she wants, I remember how to do it. Our mind can extrapolate these new sentences by experimenting with the logical patterns. Don't and can't can be switched around, producing I can't know and I don't remember. Or taken out completely and produce the opposite meaning, I know and I remember. So I hope you see the exponential power of experimenting with your sentences. Mixing and matching them around not only adds vocabulary to your repertoire, but it multiplies it. In order to help you keep track of your practice sentences, I've created a printable sheet with tables you can write on. At the top, there are two lines, A and B. On line A, you will write the sentence that you are practicing in your native language. For me, that is English. And on line B, you will write the translation into the foreign language, and for me, that is Spanish. Just below that, there are a second pair of A and B lines where you will break down the sentence into its components. Then, below that, are sentences with the other related items from your habitat. And then on the side, you have all of those items listed in your native language. So that is what it looks like, and here's how you would go about filling it out. Again, my native language is English, obviously, and the foreign language I'm currently learning is Spanish. First, on line A, I write the English sentence that I made for my first item in my habitat. Then I look up the sentence in Spanish and write it on line B. Next, I take the Spanish from the first line B and break it down into its components in the boxes that are on the second line B. And in the boxes right above that on line A, I will write the English to each component. The reason for this is because sometimes the word order in the foreign language is different than the word order to your own language. For example, the sentence, I have the blue book, is translated, tengo el libro azul, which, if you translated this word for word in English, would be, I have the book blue, which is not the regular English way to say that sentence. But I want to keep the true Spanish word order while at the same time making sure that I understand what each component means, which is why it helps to break it down like this. The next step is to write all the replacement items over on the side in English. This will then guide me to write out the rest of my full Spanish sentences. Now, this might seem like a lot of work as I explain it, but really, if you do it, it only takes a couple of minutes to write your first sentence and break it down. And if I wanted to save time, instead of writing the full Spanish sentences, I can just write the new items that I'm replacing. This helps especially if I'm writing all of these out by hand, but I don't necessarily want to practice my penmanship. Speaking of writing, if you prefer typing out your sentences, I have also included a spreadsheet that you can edit for that very purpose. So once again, let's look at the 5 techniques. Fruitful flashcards, interaction patterns, circling, practice combos, and mix and match. So that concludes the Foreign Language Smart Start video series. Thank you again for joining me. I hope this has been helpful for you. Let me know if it has or if it hasn't. Like I said before, I'm going to create a blog post specifically for all questions, comments, and feedback. So please go there and let me know what your honest thoughts are. If you want to follow along with me using any of these techniques that I'm using, there's a section of my blog called Spanish from Nothing. There's a link to it in the menu, and if you go there, you can see how I start learning Spanish from the ground up. And I might even be starting a fun little 30-day challenge in the near future, implementing some of our good habitat language. And even if you're not learning Spanish, you can still use the same techniques to whatever language you are learning. So again, thank you. Hope to see you there soon. So that concludes the Foreign Language Smart Start video series. Thank you again so much for joining me. I hope this has been helpful for you. Helpful.